Tarinder Meepagama. Some of you might have seen me a few sessions ago as well, but I'll very briefly introduce myself. I'm the Vice President of Infrastructure at Oral IT. And in that role, I'm responsible for all customer-facing infrastructure solutions, be it physical or virtual on the cloud. And it's my pleasure to be the moderator of this forum. Just very quickly, I will let my fellow panelists introduce themselves, starting with Farzad.
Well, hello again. Farzad here, Director of Global Sales at Mobility Guard. My job at Mobility Guard right now is mainly focusing on international deals with countries such as Sri Lanka.
I am Shanaka De Silva from Ernst & Young. I'm a principal taking care of heading technology consulting at Ernst & Young, from digital to ERP line of business to cybersecurity, and typical IT audits comes under me actually.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I am Mahesh Perera. At present, I am working for ICT as a CEO. And before ICTA, I worked for the Parliament for over a decade in Parliament. So that is about me, very briefly.
Hello, I'm Sarjon from the Bank Supervision Department of Central Bank. So actually, I have 18 years of experience in bank supervision. So at the moment, I'm in charge of the banking policy division, where all the regulations are issued to banks. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So to dive right into the topic a little bit, I'll start off with a question to Shanaka. So as a principal at ENY, and before you became the principal at ENY, even now, you've helped hundreds of companies along their digital transformation journeys, right? Over the years, I'm sure you've seen the trends changing sort of from computerization to digitization, right? Just moving from pen and paper and manual systems to computers, and now to doing total organizational transformation, right? Now, how do you see other next-gen technologies like cloud, AI, and machine learning affecting that?
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for having me at this function. So, I mean, we have come through quite a journey up to now from like you said, manual-based operations in organizations, then moving into point-based solutions from inventories to accounting systems to whatnot, moving into MRPs and then all the way to ERPs. So today in Sri Lanka, the hype is with ERPs, or from another aspect, core banking platforms. I would say in my level of consulting, we say the ERP is all about putting the house in order, at least in fundamentally or minimum, you should have a platform of this nature. But today's growth, today's dynamics, ERP alone will not do. There's so much of limitations only with the ERP. While you should have it at minimum, you should go for a digital journey if you want to derive the holistic view or the holistic growth in an organization. Now the question is, how do you go through that journey to move into the next level of a digitalization? Now, you have so much of tools, concepts, technologies out there. People might talk about, when you hear the word digital transformation, sometimes it's quite confusing what exactly you mean by digital transformation. From one aspect, we might say, well, it's about converting all your journeys or so-called processes, paperless, into fairly from invoicing all the way to payments, entirely digital, which many organizations have done it. Banks, of course, greatly have done it. Before this event, I was at a bank. The bank said, a big meeting in a bank said 82% of our processes are today convert to digital, which is quite good. So there's only few more to go to reach 100. Now, how do you do that? Well, we have, if you look at manufacturing sector, we have IoTs, we have digital twins today. In smart factory concepts, people start adapting. If you look at in other areas like finance institutions, Well, blockchain is a hype today. We are looking at what are the possible use cases for these industries. We are looking at crypto, which is also emerging in Sri Lanka as well as in the rest of the world. There are startups who have started building different platforms. And this will provide you to go beyond your organization, to reach your end channels, to the customers, to your partners, etc. Now, having this platform on-prem was the game few years back. You know, I remember talking to multiple boards on cloud. 5 years ago, this was quite a difficult task. Only few companies open up to have their data out of the organization. But today, you see a bigger trend. Even at board level, people talk about why not cloud comparatively to on-prem platform, which is quite good. You know, at private sector, even at some of the public sector organizations, they have a need, or they have realized going to cloud is somewhat the only option, or quite a better option comparing to a locally hosted on-prem data center. And also you remember a few years ago, again, we talked about BI. Today, of course, BI. So a few years ago, this BI was an expensive, painful, resource-hungry platform because we started formulating data warehouses, data lakes, so-called data marts. Today, you don't see these concepts much because we can utilize a simple cloud service to do this, you know. So the landscape is changing. Whatever we have done 5 years ago, 3 years ago may not be valid. It's null and void, for example. And today we have a quick option with a very fast time to a very smaller turnaround time to embrace these technologies and have a quick BI platform embedded in the organization. Again, the question is how, because most of the cloud service providers have done that work, so we just have to utilize their platforms. And AI plays a bigger role again today. You know, intelligent automation plays a bigger role in most of the organizations. And worldwide, you see cloud providers are providing this as a service rather than you're going to buy this entire platform, have a massive resource team to configure, customize, and develop this. You simply utilize a service that is out there and start connecting to your business to see the outcomes kind of instantly.
Thank you so much, Shanaka. Thank you for that insight. So, Mahesh, since Shanaka has actually brought us through this whole digital transformation and what it means and what he's been experiencing over the past 3 to 5 years of these migrations and things like that, when he's working in the corporate sectors and so on, right? How do you see that relating to government and also the transformation journey of the government now?
Yeah, Tarindu, let me start where Shanaka stopped. So I see these regulators as enablers in this Sri Lanka's journey towards transformation in the context of digital transformation. So if I take few examples where I worked previously, now of course I'm working for ICTA, and before I worked for the Parliament. So it's, again, when it comes to digital transformation, this cloud journey you can't take in isolation. It's a part and parcel of this transformation journey. Because we develop all sort of strategies on top of this data infrastructure. So the data plays the critical role, or we call it data is the currency, or data has more value than the financial currency in today's world. And the benefits was immense. Now, to purchase a single server in the government, it takes almost about 6 months. So, by moving to the cloud, deploying a server, commissioning a server just takes only 30 minutes. So, the agility was quite fast. And even to upgrade a server, it takes another few months. So, having an infrastructure, scalability is, virtually is there. And the cost factor, the AC requirement, the power requirement were quite low. So agility, scalability, the cost, I mean, we were experienced to the hell. So without having a proper cloud, the digital transformation is impossible.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Mahesh. So moving on to Sarjun, right? Having been in banking supervision department of central bank since 2005, right? And central bank having the responsibility as the regulator for the entire Sri Lankan banking system. Can you please explain to us the role of technology in the banking industry? And now, based on all these things that Mahesh and Shanaka have said so far, how as a regulator you're adjusting to these changes in the industry?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this panel. So I would like to explain some of the initiatives taken by the central bank towards digitalization, and especially in bank and financial sector. So I think today we are talking about artificial intelligence, fintech and data science. So, and we talked this for the last 5 years because I believe we are in the peak of the cycle, digitalization cycle. But actually our banking system started digitalization way back in 1990s. So with computerizing their system, with the introduction of ATM network, that is the starting point of digitalization. We started in early 1990s. So with that, after some time, we moved to check clearing, digitalized, so check imaging system. Then, of course, central bank come up with a lot of payments and settlement system based on digital infrastructure. Like we have today this common card payment system, shared ATM, common ATM switch, and electronic fund transfers. We have RTGS and slips, which are systemically important. There are so much of initiative we have taken. So I brought a small note also. So after check imaging and common card system, Lanka Pay, QR code, and of course we facilitate cloud service, but there are certain regulation service providers need to follow. But otherwise we are positive on that and we are facilitating. Then of course QR and NFC, near field communication, and finally nano banking. So now we see most of our banks moving from branch network. So everybody want to put up some machines where you can do any banking service. We can get any banking service. So it is the transformation we went through during the last 20 to 30 years. So it's not that a new concept, digitalization in banking sector for Sri Lanka. So as a regulator, all over the world, regulators follow a conservative approach. And of course, there are two extremes. Either you can be the fast follower on one extreme, or you can be the defensive player on the other extreme. So every country, every regulator, every central bank will select a point in between two these extremes. So similarly, within the legal framework, within the common law of the country, our central bank also a little bit conservative, and therefore we have put up some regulation with regard to BCP and DRP, then IT risk resilience. So within the regulation, we favor the banks and other third-party service providers, right? So I just mentioned few of the requirements for the benefit of the audience. And according to the latest regulation issued by the central bank on IT and digitalization, we wanted the bank to have all the risk mitigant in place. And a CIO is a new key management position created by the central bank. It was not there maybe 5 years back. So it's a new position created in order to manage all these IT and digitalized related risks. Then with regard to data sovereignty, which is important. So as a regulator, we want to have that right. At any time, we should be able to visit service provider, third-party service provider, and ask for any information, any security measures implemented, and all the controls implemented. So that is very important. So as a regulator, we should have that authority to call explanation even the outsourced service providers. So of course, bank, it's mandated, we can take any information. But when we go beyond the bank to third-party service provider or an outsourced agent, we should need that data sovereignty power authority. And the board of directors should be responsible. Customers need to be informed well. So this is a common problem we have in our country. Bank takes some action, some policy actions without adequately informing the customer. And ultimately, customer will blame the central bank, right? So there are so many things on an overarching level we need to think. I think I have taken too much of time. So there are some other initiatives in the pipeline, and I hope to explain that in the next round. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarjun, for that insightful explanation of where the regulator stands and also the kind of things you need to think about before making a hasty decision. So moving on to Farzad. So now you've heard from three Sri Lankans, right? One from the perspective of an advisor or a consultant, one from perspective of being in parliament and now in terms of making policy for government, and then someone who's been with the regulator supervising banks, not only on IT and technology, but all around their perspectives. So what are kind of the similarities that you see between where we are at Sri Lanka and the different things that the panelists have said, as well as where Sweden used to be, and what are the sort of common challenges that you see looking back?
Well, hello, yeah. Well, the similarities, there are no similarities, I believe, to be frank. I will try to paint a picture for you. So, Sweden, we were the chefs, running and sweating in the kitchen, having a guy like Gordon Ramsay screaming at you, some kind of bad words. And for Sri Lanka, you will be the guys serving in ease. And I can hear now how we are talking about the future of Sri Lanka. I mean, where you are now, it's a very good place. Sweden was the first country to deploy a full-scale electronic ID. And this was back, I think the project started back in 2001. So it's over 20 years ago. At that time, we had quite a struggle. And the struggle was not about the technology itself, well, a little bit, but mostly the infrastructure. So we are talking about laws and regulations, things that you are addressing now, talking about now, preparing for now. We are talking about the absence of smartphones. My colleague Johan showed you slides of a smartphone. I think what you have in your mind here, talking about the electronic ID in the future, it's smartphones. When the Swedish bank ID was launched, there were no iPhones or Androids. And also, we didn't have authority as a regulator controlling this market. I mean, we have this digitalization authority in Sweden that was founded, I believe, 15 years after that the first electronic ID was deployed. So we moved in the dark for many years. It took us a good 10 years before we had a general, good running electronic ID for both the private and the public sector. You will not have that struggle, I can promise you that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's very positive and encouraging, I think, for all of us that we have all these learnings to build from. And I think that ties in perfectly with what I wanted to come back around to Shanaka on. So other than your experience in Sri Lanka, right? I mean, you've been as a consultant, as a principal for EY, right? And EY being EY, one of the big three. your experience in the region, right, dealing with these kind of issues and seeing those kind of regulatory landscapes, keeping in mind that in this region, we are the second smallest, right, in the sense like, other than Maldives, then there's Sri Lanka, and all our regional neighbors in South Asia are much, much larger than us. What are they doing in terms of digitization? And in terms of a regulatory landscape, when you're working in those regions, right, in those countries, what do you see as commonalities and what do you see as advancements in those regions, especially relating around cloud and regulation around cloud in the region?
So, I mean, the best examples, if you can think of countries like India, China, for example, today is quite active in digitization as well as cloud adaptation. India, on a note, like is a rapidly growing digital economy today, and a flourishing IT sector with many large giants offshore centers have been placed. And quite big initiatives by the state. For example, if you could recall a few years back, the Digital India focused on e-governance, digital infrastructure, as well as broadband connectivity. Gave the entire business community a good boost by the state to walk on this journey of digitization. China, on the other hand, is a massive ecosystem with a lot of startups on technology. And if you go into countries like Singapore, today, for example, quite an active player on digitization again, have made their policies quite relaxed. Even issues like data sovereignties have been quite relaxed to encourage international players as well as local players to host multiple different data centers and cloud service providing. So if you look at Singapore has become a hub today for many multinationals to host their entire instant ASEAN instance in Singapore, including EY does it. Our entire ASEAN instance of all the applications, all the data, all the platform sits in Singapore, for example. And Singapore also have taken multiple initiatives, like one big initiative, if I can recall, is the Smart Nation in Singapore, which basically, again, gave a good boost to the economy as well as provided a quality of life to its citizens at that time during this. Well, those are some of the great initiatives, but on the other hand, of course, we see things like data localization concept, which basically was quite active in India, but today no more much. I mean, it's there, but it's not very active data localization, which was challenged to many cloud providers when it comes to data localization. So, but coming back to the regulator, of course, I'll agree with Sir John also. Well, if you look at the region, most of the region, other than one or two countries, usually take a step-by-step approach. You know, he called it conservative approach, which is the usual form if you look at. Very rarely, regulators have taken a leapfrog approach. Big case study for this is the Estonia, for example. It's a massive leapfrog. But if you look at the other countries, take, one dose at a time and then see what's the outcome and see the repercussions, see the risk. Because as you said, digital is not everything. Well, it comes as a package. It has good things as well as bad things in it. So you need to figure out how. But there's a lot of lessons if you look at around the world. So countries are adapting them. On another front, if you see after 2018 GDPR, about 52 countries today are adapting a personal data protection law, including Sri Lanka. We have enacted it. We have 18 more months, or rather 17 more months to basically start fining whoever violates this. Singapore is there now. Singapore, India is there. They have an act. China is there. So all of them are now focusing on a similar data protection act. And again, a problem when you're working or when you're operating within that act, again, you will have so many IT assets within you. You yourself will not know where these IT assets, where the personal data is stored if you don't manage them well. Again, cloud will give you quite a boost onto those scenarios. So again, while regulator takes step by step, if you look at the rest of the world, they have always encouraged this. You know, of course, it's a journey. It does not happen overnight. It's a journey, but around the world, it has happened. And if you look at, just to give you a quick example, if you look at in terms of the application platforms, I said in my previous example, we started on-prem. But if you look at today, world's leading ERPs like SAP, like Oracle, does not come on-prem version. It does not have on-prem version. It has only a cloud only, or we call it software as a service platform only. You know, so good old days we worked with platform as a service, we worked with infrastructure as a service. Today, these world-class platforms does not have that version anymore. It's purely cloud-only version. So what do you do in that case? It has already happened. It happened about 3 years back. These big giants decided, no, we will only provide a cloud-only version. Some of them still provide you a facility to pick a cloud provider, while some of them does not provide that facility also, you know. So you don't know where the data is stored, for example. It could be in India, it could be in Singapore, it could be in, you know, Hong Kong. You really don't know where it is. We also see a kind of a trend in hybrid cloud around the region, particularly when it comes with the data localization. Hybrid cloud is a good option, where most of the time your applications will be on cloud, but the data will reside within the country. So you need to architect it very well, but there's a hype, there's a tendency towards hybrid cloud as well. So in summary to the question, just a matter of time, you know, we all will, whether we like it or not, automatically will migrate to cloud. It's just a matter of few years from today. And if you look at another aspect on co-banking platforms, which is very prominent in the country and very prominent to central bank also. Today on-prem, but according to Gartner, most of the world's leading co-banking providers have vouched that the next version would be cloud only. So the question is, what do you do? Are we going to live with the previous version forever? Or are we going to open up someday because you only have a cloud only version? So that's the future. We might have 3-4 years more to really come up with our policies, come up with our regulations to manage them. But I don't think it will go beyond 5 years.
Thank you, Shanaka. And I'm glad that you mentioned the co-banking as well, just like the ERP. Now, the cloud SaaS option is there, but very soon it will be SaaS only, even in co-banking. So, Mahesh, in terms of, as a regulator from ICTA perspective, right, and in terms of intergovernment support, in the morning when His Excellency the President was here, he was talking about Digicon and the intergovernment initiatives that they were working on with other governments in the region as well, on bringing digitization and those kind of support. As a regulator and working with other governments and, you know, the lessons learned, a little bit of what Shanaka has talked about, the conservative approach versus the leapfrog approach and so on. What kind of initiatives is ICTA working with, or what kind of collaborations do you have at the moment? What are you using as blueprints currently, sort of, you know, the intergovernmental side to formulate these policies to be ready for the future?
Yeah, Tarindu, now So today, data and data governance has become, quite significant. You have no choice. So the country's top priority is about data and data governance. So now, as I said earlier, so you can't take this cloud journey in isolation. It's part and parcel of, overall strategy. Now the good thing is, the country unveiled a new strategy. National Digital Transformation Strategy 2030 is unveiled today at the Prime Minister's office. So if I say a few words about this strategy, because that's the way forward for our cloud journey again. So it's about digitalization of the entire nation. Digitalization of multiple sectors, say agriculture, health, education, all these sectors will be digitalized. So there will be large number of data repositories. So in these sectors. And again, as my colleague mentioned national ID, the enterprise service bus, connecting all multiple data repositories, as well as payment platforms needs to be in place. So it's virtually a connected government. Government talks to each other and citizen connected with the government. This overall strategy has 6 strategic areas: the broadband connectivity, cybersecurity, connected government, payment platform, skill development, and the digitalization of other sectors. So there will be a large volume of data. So government needs to manage or capitalize on this data towards the development or towards the next status of the government. That's what we call about the sovereignty of data. So that's the regulatory part of the government, how we are going to make use of this data for the betterment of the citizen, for the betterment of the government. So at the same time, as you said, it's all about regulating to create this conducive environment, to have more innovation within the country, to have more collaboration within the country, and so government in a better footing to take whatever the possible action. Now say, for example, if I am having a phone call with him, if this data is in a country where the government doesn't have any jurisdictional control, so what the government could do in an event of legal case or a jurisdictional concern. So government must have jurisdictional control over this data. So while maintaining this jurisdictional control, the challenge is how we are going to create this conducive environment, innovation, promote innovation, doing other many things. So that is why we strongly need a strong regulators and a strong framework to promote this crowd-friendly initiatives. Now, in that context, actually yesterday, there are a few colleagues here in the audience itself. We had a discussion yesterday. It's a sort of a multi-stakeholder brainstorming session, how to, reframe our cloud policy, cloud framework. So when it comes to this cloud framework, so we believe the fundamental concern is the data sovereignty. So there are multiple data sovereignty concerns, as my colleague Shanaka mentioned earlier, like Estonia, they follow a quite liberal approach. So they don't, strictly set conditions that data localization should be the priority, or that whatever produced must be maintained within or onshore or within the geographic boundaries. But if you take India, if you take Bangladesh, Pakistan, they follow strict data localization or data sovereignty principles confining to geographic boundaries. And so while promoting this data sovereignty, there are many other aspects we should look at. So one is the localization and encryption techniques, and again the data classification. So as a country, we are quite at a quite low level in terms of data classification. We still don't know much about, what is critical to our certain domains and what is not critical. So number one thing is to do the classification first. And based on classification, so how we are going to, follow this, what you call, the cloud policy. We must allow people to choose, maintain those critical data onshore, and to have other non-critical data where they could afford to. So, and then again, the education or building awareness. There's many things to be done in terms of educating domains as well as other government organizations in terms of following these policies. So the first thing is the regulation is important, but at the same time we need to make sure the regulation won't hamper innovation and creativity, and it must help the country moving from whatever the stages to the next level.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mahesh. And Sarjun, so we heard from Mahesh how the government is sort of handling it in terms of government organizations, right? Can you please enlighten us on the different collaborations that you have going on and how Central Bank is working with other international organizations to sort of accelerate this adoption of new technology, and what initiatives that you are taking?
Yeah, so actually now Central Bank have already implemented a lot of initiative toward digitalization, and there are some other projects on the pipeline. And of course, we need capacity in terms of knowledge and in terms of funding to go for a large-scale transformation toward digitalization. And we know people are leaving the country, and especially bankers are leaving, and IT guys are flying at a rate. So those will be the challenges for us in the near future with regard to digital transformation. And therefore, a central bank, as a policy maker, we actually taking some help or support from many of the multilateral agencies like IMF, ADB, IFC, in order to implement different digitalization projects within the central bank and also within the country. Now, one of the key initiative is, now I think he said about digitalizing the parliament operation, and now the central bank is working on digitalizing customs, EPF payment by the corporates, tax payments. So all these we are working on at the initial stages with the help of multilateral agencies. Another important project is the national card scheme, so which is similar to the electronic ID in Sweden. So I think it's the ultimate objective. So I think we are in the right direction, and according to our policy roadmap, it will be by 2028, most of these projects will be implemented, and hoping that there's no crisis, no other crisis come in between, right? So if everything moves smoothly, and if we can come out of the current crisis within a next 2 years, so this could be achieved. And the other initiative is cloud service. So it's already, central bank is on positive note. We already permitted to go for cloud service. And if you see our direction, and we are more flexible. So we don't say like Mahesh mentioned, some countries are very strict on data localization. But if you go through our regulation, we are flexible. There are different models we are permitting subject to set criteria. So either it can be locally owned and managed, or owned and managed locally but the cloud is outside the country, or it can be owned and managed and maintained outside the country. So there are different combinations of cloud service. We have we already permitted, it's in our direction, right? So only thing is the service providers and the bank need to have the infrastructure in place, and then we have to have the law, not the regulation issued by central bank, but the law as a country, Data Protection Act, and of course our regulation address about identifying critical data, data encryption, and everything is there, but I used to say this, central bank alone cannot do anything. So it should be a collective approach by various authorities, including the government, then only we can achieve this. Right? And the other important thing is eKYC and shared KYC. Now we know when we want to open a bank account or to do any banking transaction, banks are required to check the background checking. So KYC, know your customer, and due diligence. So at the moment, banks do their own KYC and due diligence. With this shared eKYC, not only bank, it's only one person, say bank A do the eKYC for one customer, all other bank can get the access to that system, and not only bank, finance company, insurance company, stock market, all the financial sector institution which need to undergo KYC and CDD, they will be given access to this shared KYC platform. So now we have CRIB, for example. So any bank or finance company, they can easily access CRIB and get the credit worthiness of the borrower. So similarly, eKYC it will be a big jump in digitalization and also towards electronic ID in Sri Lanka, hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years. And AML, again, it's a very important area with the emergence of digitalization, anti-money laundering. So people globally will misuse our banking system and our payment system for those illegal activities. So, and while we digitalize operation, we need to digitalize the risk management and risk control. So AML, Go AML, that is the name given for that project. So it will be another big jump. And finally, we have ITRS. Again, it's a digital process. And now at the moment, within the central bank, there are so many departments. Every time when they need information, each department individually call the bank. So the bank need to provide same data for 4, 5, 6 different departments in different formats, different data reporting formats, right? So it's a headache for bankers, and it takes a lot of money, time, and cost. So central bank have implemented a system called ITRS system, where the bank will give data only once, and all the user department within the central bank can extract data according to the format they require. But all these are at the initial stage. So I think most of these projects started around after 2019. And then COVID came, all these put aside. Then the economic crisis, we are busy with recapitalizing bank, right? So that's why there is some delay, but hopefully, as I said, if there is no further crisis, we should be able to achieve all these within the next 3 to 5 years. And while we do all this, as a regulator, we also need to digitalize our supervisory and regulatory process. So we have started working on RegTech and SupTech, supervisory technology and regulatory technology. And of course, one of the multilateral agencies supporting us on capacity building and funding. So hopefully, all in all, I think within next 5 years, we will see much improved financial sector and economy towards digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarjan. So just very quickly, Farzad, what can you as Mobility Guard, as a company, and your experience do to help us, help companies in the region and help Sri Lanka to accelerate this digital transformation journey?
I was very glad about your speech here. First of all, you don't need 5 years. Sign the contract here, and you will have a complete infrastructure within 2 years. We have been working with the Swedish Bank ID for over 20 years. We have all the know-how. We have all the do's, but also all the don'ts. Together with our product, WisePass, and the experience that we have, we can not only help Sri Lanka to implement a full-scale electronic ID in a quite short period of time, but we can actually help you, because we have a blank canvas here to work with, we can actually help you to leap before the pioneers of electronic ID, which is Sweden. And finally, my last thing here, this is the Red Cloud Summit. I should address that question. About cloud then. When you have a fully implemented electronic ID in the country, and I cannot stress this enough, it's extremely, extremely critical that this electronic ID never fails. It must never go down. So I ask you, fellows here, I ask the audience, where would you put your money? On an on-prem solution in your basement, or advanced cloud infrastructure with load balancing, with backups, with servers in different regions? I mean, it's quite clear. So, if such an important function for society must be on the cloud, then answer me, why should anything else not be there? Thank you.
Thank you, Farzad. So I had the phone with the question and answers put away, but now that I've opened it and I'm going through it, there's so many questions and answers. I apologize, we won't be able to get through all of these, but I will try and tackle a few key ones. From the central bank, we have a question for Sarjun. What kind of facilities will be provided as central bank, as a regulator, for any IT innovators who are earning dollars for this country, and what opportunities do they have? What opportunities are you creating as a regulator for IT innovators who are bringing dollar inflow into the country?
I think you're asking about people work from Sri Lanka for a private company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So of course there's no restriction at the moment, but we had some restriction in the past. But now people can work for offshore companies, and if they can, and as a regulator, okay, so we always check for documents and evidence. So if they can provide suitable, appropriate documents, a bank will open a personal foreign currency account for them, and they are free to bring their salaries to that personal foreign currency account. But during COVID time, there is a conversion requirement. So where people have to bring dollar and convert and sell it to the bank. So that regulation is no more. So they can hold accounts in dollars. But the problem that we have with regard to these freelance IT people, they don't have the proper documents. They don't have a proper offer letter, and other documents to make sure it's a legal source of earning. So I think sometime back, maybe last year, few freelance IT people come and met us. And the problem we discussed with them, so the main problem what they notified is this. So they don't have, and sometimes these companies are virtual companies. So there's no physical existence. So those are fundamental for KYC and due diligence. So if they can pass through KYC and due diligence, there's no restriction at the moment.
Thank you, Sarjun. Again, another one for you, and I think you already addressed this, and you already mentioned this, but it's required for in a more clear or asking for a clarification. So, from a central bank perspective, it's okay for banks to go on cloud. It's just simply that question.
Yeah. Okay, as I explained earlier, we are positive on that. Right? We are not negative. We are not telling bank should not go. And I just list out the initiative taken and in the pipeline. So which will require a gamut of information and which cannot be stored in your server room. So server rooms are not capable of holding that much of data. So therefore, cloud is the future, and there's no question in that, right? And in our regulation, we already permitted different models of cloud service. And hopefully in the future, there are so many other service providers. And for service providers also need to get the required certification and other protections, the controls, and the infrastructure. So when more companies with these requirements come into the market, and it's just a matter of time, so they can provide their services to the banks and other government institutions.
So I'll just have two more questions and then we'll wrap up because we are already over time. For Mahesh from ICTA, I'm going to read the question and then I'll rephrase it a little bit. Being the digital apex body of the country, how can ICTA contribute Sri Lanka being transformed into a smart nation? Further, what digital policies can be introduced to make the country citizen-centric? Right. So that is the original question. But I think in the interest of time, I'll just rephrase it slightly and say, can you tell us what are the digital policies that you are currently adopting specifically in terms of, or working on at the moment to make the nation more smart?
Tarandu, it's like this. Now, for this transformation, technology is required, but technology itself can't do the transformation. So, I mean, in terms of, you need right infrastructure. So for that, we have digital government policies. And again, when it comes to this particular, the topic today, the cloud policy, I mean, the regulation is required, but over-regulation will kill the innovation, and under-regulation will lose the opportunities that we have before us. So you need the right balance when it comes to have the cloud policy. So there may be multiple policies you need. That is where you need regulation in order to make this transformation happen. But I must emphasize here that transformation is not all about technology. Technology is needed, but technology itself can't make this transformation. I'm glad to see there are a lot of leaders, because leaders has to make the pivotal role in this transformation, because digital leadership is the key in this transformation. So it's all about multiple competencies leaders are having in order to make this transformation a reality. So that will really, the leadership will help us take this country from where we are to the next level.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think based on the time available, I'm going to wrap it up on this note. There was actually a separate few other questions that I wanted to ask as well, but unfortunately we've run a little bit over time. But thank you so much for the esteemed panel, and thank you so much for everyone who messaged and asked these questions. And I apologize for not being able to reply to all of them. Perhaps I'll have a chat with my panel members offline on some of these questions and get back to you guys.